anyatego oh chiluhayo anyatego oh chiluhayo apurukanyu wanagamagayo quem bom be managa ibare quem bom be managa buyewo apurukanyu are basu no bom be managa ibare quem bom be managa buyewo apurukanyu are basu no bom sunubo 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 wamalika 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 hiwalegayo walegayo ka wa bai kwiru ho ka bai bagaso mama wamalika wamalika mama wamalika wamalika.
All right, fantastic images and the wonderful music of the man Aurelio Martinez. Another legend has departed from our midst, and it brought back flashback when we heard about the death of Andy Palacio. But certainly many of us woke up this week wondering and hoping that the hoax news, the fake, that in fact what we were reading wasn't true, that a airline had gone down in Rotan and 15 people had perished, amongst them the beloved Garinagu artist, Aurelio Martinez, who was a Garifano, but he was also a Belizean, and at the same time not a Belizean, because he was in fact a Honduran, to the point that he ran for the Honduran Congress and won, set a benchmark there, established some new boundaries. But Belize mourns Aurelio. We know that we sent a delegate of 31 persons to where was it? La Ceiba, where he was buried. Yeah. Let me introduce our two special guests this evening. Honored to have once again with us the inimitable Richard Holder, photographer, writer, producer, a whole number of things. We could deplete the whole aura there and totally capture. And a gentleman, Mr. Aaron Anderson, who has been on the scene, vocal and or I should say verbal on Facebook, but also you've called into radio stations. I've heard your voice a number of times. I know that you were behind Shine. I believe you were supporting Shine. And let me go on record to say that I didn't see why people hated Shine the way they did. I didn't see him as a terrible individual that they tried to paint him as. We all got a pass, we all have done things that we regret. And as the saying goes, let he without sin cast the first stone. But Richard, we know that you have a number of memories with Aurelio. Give us some of the history. I met the man once. He was an impressionable guy. He just seemed to me down to earth, basic, wonderful. What was your take on him?
First of all, the news of his passing hit me really hard, and it's because of the times we shared, especially the images I shared of him, which was the occasion where I got to kind of connect with him the most of all the times we had met in the past, right? Because I met him a lot in concert when he was doing performances, and I was there photographing these things, And with Andy Palacio, I remember a couple times they were together. What I liked about him a lot, and you know what? As a photographer, one of the things they don't teach you in school is to pick up on people's aura. Like when you're encountering someone for the first time to take their portrait, a thing that I've learned to develop is if you could gauge the individual, like you would be able to tell, how much you could get from this person. Some people will tell you no. Some people want flirt with the camera. It's like a dynamic there, but there's no language in between you. It's almost a vibe. You could tell when a person will be a little bit problematic sometimes too, or how huge the ego is. And I could talk about different people I've met who I photographed in the past, historical figures too, who have all had their unique aura. The one thing about Aurelio is that there was a kind of humility there. There was a kind of innocence there, the smile. He gave it freely, There was a tenderness there. There was not kind of like there was no walls with him. And because of that, I would mirror that energy. And he was such an easy subject to work with, such a pleasant person to work with. One of the pictures I published a long time ago when I just did that photo shoot with him where it looked like one of those images got utilized a lot recently. He had his hand on my shoulder, and it just kind of went to show what kind of person he was. He was a very approachable individual, and it's someone, because of his kindness. I mean, you know what? I when I heard he passed away, the first thing I did was streamed his music all day on Spotify, and that even gave me more insight into who he was, and it broke my heart even harder to do that. But I said, you know what? I have to mourn this man. And if you listen to his music, you could hear it. You could hear the rhythms. You could hear how he's kind of taking it. Brought some modern elements into his guitar style. I mean, but there's a gentleness in there. It's peaceful. It kind of like a Bob Marley thing. It really chill you out. You could feel like this is a pleasant music. This is nothing where it stress you out. And I think it really reflected him, and I think that's what I captured in the images. That's what I got from him all through the session that we did in Cayo. That was at a location in San Ignacio. It was an amazing day, and now an amazing memory, which I will cherish even more.
Well, and I spoke on the Palacio because I remember Andy and Palna Bor. But these guys, even when they sing only in Garifuna, you can almost feel the music. You can almost understand what they're saying, even though you don't understand the language. You
Right.
get the feel of it, no? Would you say do you think that the camera captured some of that aura that you're speaking of? Because you speak of different people having different types of aura. When you took Aurelio as opposed to when you take, say, somebody else. And we didn't call no names because we could, but we don't want to embarrass nobody to that degree. But did you feel like you were capturing some of the aura of
Yeah,
Aurelio?
I could tell you, yeah, absolutely. There was no pretension in his vibe. There was a purity to it, just like the white shirt he used, which was kind of symbolic, When I look back at that, I said, hey, that was great, that he was dressed in full white somewhat. And there were a lot of moments there where I just tried to walk around him, asked him to play his guitar. There's more pictures I could share from that, which had different levels of energy. There was one that I didn't publish yet that was where he's playing the guitar and his hair was like in the air because he throw his head but everything this guy did, there was a kind of like a gentle touch to it. There was something very soft about it, and it was a reflection of his personality, and to somewhat I guess the passion in his music. I never caught any. I've never seen a sense of violence from all this. I listened to his entire catalog on Spotify, and I encourage you to do it as well. And you could just hear, the culture. You could hear it just had this way of soothing you. It really truly was a kind of reflection of, I think, him deep inside of what kind of person he was. And from the session, the shoot, it was like water. I remember it like water. There was no conflict. There was no tension there. It was just like a moment.
I understand that they're having a tribute on March the 26th, I believe, at the House of Culture. I hope they have enlisted you to do some background on the pictures and whatnot. Cause that would be wonderful. I mean, throughout the whole session, no?
Oh
Because
yeah.
they could put on a screen. They have they approached you yet or not?
Well, as you know, I'm not in Belize. So I'm kind of like, I've always been
Yes,
kind of
but
independent
you're
out
you're
there.
you're,
I'm like,
you're
true.
reachable. We reach you.
Yeah,
We reach you. They can
I am.
reach you. Let me
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, Aaron. Before I get to you, let me introduce Susan. Susan is coming on. She's been with us before. Hi, Susan. We spend a few time, only a few minutes to reflect on Ariel, if you don't mind. Ariel, uh,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night, Susan.
Yeah, Aaron. You got you any memories on your part? What was it like? Did you have interactions along the way?
Unfortunately, not. I never met him in person.
Okay.
Obviously, being from Dangriga, the music living away, and so that that music, that like way album title Garifna Soul, that Paranda soulful melody where he bring, you feel it, like you're gonna say, even though you might not speak the language, you could feel it through his music. And like I said, growing up there, man, you have to have an appreciation for his talent, because he definitely made up on a different level.
It was
And
awesome.
like what Richard made say, the peacefulness in his music, I definitely felt that in his music.
When the
Soothing, relaxing, almost meditative music.
when the music hits you, you feel no pain.
None.
Yeah. So, Richard, did you attend the services in La Ceiba?
No,
You.
gee, I'm here in Houston, Texas. As you know, I'm far
I
from there.
see you. I see you post something say you're back in Belize. I say, well, Richard is back in Belize.
Oh,
I
that was
must a
right.
whole post or
I
you
must say,
just to
well,
reminisce.
because I've been saying for the sad thing is, man, which will stay with me forever, is that Aurelia actually passed away on my birthday. So I had a wonderful birthday here in Houston, March
Serious
7th.
time? Amen.
I was just thinking to myself, and I told my wife, I said, what you want today? I said, I feel like the universe stay with me. You ask for anything and you don't get it. And she asked for small things, that's how she is. And
But
and it
you
worked
would
out.
have asked for that.
It
You
was
wouldn't have asked for that.
no, 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 man. I thought, like you said, like when I saw this thing, the first thing I saw was somebody said my mom is going to see her favorite artist, and I had to look on this post, with people and lights, and I said, what the hell? Didn't have a strange concert or something? Like, the lighting threw me off. And then when I started to read it and see it, and I just couldn't believe it. So it was, in a sense, the worst ending for one of the best birthdays I've ever had. And I will always remember him on my birthday. Unfortunate.
That yeah, you got that know a good memory for have
No,
all
no, no,
such.
no,
So, but
no.
yeah, condolences on that also, man. Aaron, we know you moved. You are you in the States now? You're coming back home. What are the plans?
Um, I'm in the States right now. I just left Belize last week, last weekend. But the plan that definitely for explore the next steps and do so quickly. I want to take a serious look in redistricting, how that works
Definitely.
out for the South, and from there go on to see how best I could officially make my footprint.
Susan met Ariel too. Susan know Ariel.
Yes. Good night, guys. I could share exactly how I met him. Actually, when I first met him, I was a teenager, and he didn't know how to speak English at this time, and he had came to Punta Gorda to perform for the Easter Fest. And PG sometimes can be a sleepily tongue, and when Aurelia came, it definitely boosts the morale of the people who was raising me, and that was Garifuna woman and aunt and uncle. They were just so happy, and they looked at him as a superstar. He was like that not superstar in like a vanity kind of way, but he definitely had the spirit and the energy to cheer these people on who are really going through poverty and benign neglect there in the South. And so I was able to witness the magic of him being able to do that. And I think that a lot of my activism kind of rooted from that experience. The experience actually has turned into something a little bit bigger than it should have. I was underage, so I wasn't supposed to even be at this concert. And I know I had to see this person perform live. And I was going to high school in Independence Village, and I had jumped on the stage, and he was playing the guitar, and I just free up and dance. And all my high school teachers was in the audience. And, so when I went to school the Monday, um, my dad, who is this tall Caucasian man, had to come to school and talk to these people to not have them expel me from school because I was on stage at Aurelia. And my dad said, this girl, she's a Garifuna, and this is her culture, and this is a culture person, and she wasn't drinking. This is her culture, and how can you expel my daughter from school for partying on Aurelia, on stage at Aurelia, And so I enjoyed. I was definitely a fan, and I enjoyed his music. But I also somehow got intertwined with a lot of the Garifuna elders who I would sit with, and they would share a lot of their social problems, and Aurelia sing about these problems. And so when we heard of the passing, and I had got in touch with CY, we wanted to figure a way how we can just do a tribute to him on this show. And I've met Mr. G. Michael maybe a year or two ago, and he met us, talking about Garifuna and wanting to do so much for our community. And so I just think that tonight was kind of appropriate for us to gather and do this. And I'm honored to be here.
It certainly is, and I must apologize because I didn't immediately make the connection. I didn't remember that you had such a deep connection to the South, and you're telling me you're actually raised by a Garifuna woman.
By mom, yeah.
Your mother. You speak Garifuna, do you?
I don't speak Garifuna fluently. I'm trying my best to learn, and I could navigate a lot of the Garifuna communities, but I do not.
But you do identify as a Garifuna.
100%. 100%.
Wonderful. All right, so it's as big a loss for you as for everybody else. And I'm watching some of the posts about the three kings, and Arena was in fact one of the three kings. Correct, Richard?
Yeah.
Palnabur, Aurelia.
And that they all related. These men are all related. They come from the same bloodline. And so these gentlemen actually, if you were to do their genealogy, they actually would be, maybe Mr. Paul Naber might have been the fourth generation of Garifuna that came from Baliso. And Andy Palacio and Aurelia Martinez would now be the fifth generation that could trace back to that pilgrimage happening over here to Honduras, Guatemala, Belize. And so, it doesn't, a lot of things that happen is not far. These guys are not far in the generation. It's recent generation of people. So their children, Aurelia had children. He had a bunch of sons. I think he had a daughter or two. So their children, if you were to ask them, their proper response should be, I am the sixth generation of Garifuna in this region. So that's where we at currently with these bloodlines.
The only problem with that, though, would be that the Garunugu have been establishing themselves as indigenous. How do you trace back to when you came and then still consider indigenous as a part of you?
It's quite appropriate. It would be indigenous, especially not maybe to Belize, but to the region,
The
where
Mesoamerica.
they right Mesoamerica, where they were mixed with other indigenous tribes, and it's traceable, right? These are things that you can take these people DNA. Matter of fact, you can take the DNA of any three of those gentlemen, Palnaber, Aurelio, and the Palacio, and that DNA would tell you exactly the story, and it would give you it could give you the different tribes of the people that was in the Greater Antilles that actually came from the mainland Amazon. So Garifuna people have all of those in them, and so it would be appropriate as well for them to refer to themselves as an indigenous group of people as well.
Yeah, yeah, Aaron, and bear with us as we dedicate this first part. So if you got
Oh,
anything, you just
definitely.
jump in, no?
I the land. I am soaking this in. Thank
It
you.
is very interesting, and Susan obviously has some parts of the puzzle to fill in, right?
It's yeah. Before we go on, guys, can you guys allow me to open up the tribute with this from Hopkins? And Hopkins has been I honestly I don't feel Hopkins has really been, a lot of the Garifuna communities hasn't really been able to mourn this loss. But today on Facebook I did saw something that I would like to share tonight, and then we can really get jump started. But allow me to read this, G Michael. And it comes from a Facebook post, and the post page is called Hopkins Village. And I want to say that the post is run by Mr. Jeremy Christopher, and he is a young activist. He's also a producer. He's a cameraman. He's a husband. He's a father, and this is what he posts. He posts a lot of not only activism stuff, but he also posts a lot um, spirituality stuff as well. So I want to share this with you guys. He says, being Garifuna means understanding that death is not an end, but an amplification of human faculty into a state that connects with both the physical and non-physical. It is a transformation that allows existence to continue in a cyclical rhythm, where the physical is reshaped and reborn. Throughout this continuity, one gains greater opportunity to know oneself on multiple levels of consciousness. Aurelio embodies a consciousness that has existed through generations of master of this realm. He was also a warrior, like one another, like one not like one like no other, not one who is yield a sword or a gun, nor one who shed blood. His only weapon was his guitar, and his army was formed by the note and melody he played with profound mastery, influencing the mind's heart of those who truly listened. Many of you may have felt a great loss in his passing, indeed, but it was not an easy one to bear. But today we lay to rest a being who is one of the greatest masters to have ever lived. Yet in his departure, humanity has gained so much more deeper understanding of his teaching. In his death, I witnessed for the first time our people united from all corners of the world for one sole purpose, love for the Garifuna. I saw brotherhood, I saw sisterhood, the very pillar of the Garifuna way of life. His passion was fueled by his desire to build a Garifuna nation that few believed exists. Yet in his passing, the shadow of the nation can now be seen and felt. The possibility is now a reality, but only in the shadows. Why a shadow? We may ask, you may ask. Where there is a shadow, sometimes greater existence on the other side, illuminated by light. The possibilities are real, but our desire to become masters like those before us must be brought into the light, just as Aurelio illuminated the Garifuna nation and the world. Forever Loved, Aurelia Martinez, written by Jeremy Christopher. That's from Hopkins Village.
All right, something you said there, kind of like brought to mind something Richard was saying, that in his music, you never heard any violence. You didn't hear like somebody going after somebody else or not fool with me, boy, or nothing like that. We're seeing a lot of that in a dance hall and even in some of the local music. But Ariella seems to have been all about peace, love, tranquility, togetherness, and certainly had a deep pride in his Garifuna-ness. So I imagine he is a man amongst men, a man to be admired, a man to be remembered, a man to be revered. I hope the tributes continue for some time, and we learn more. Like Aaron said, we're learning. So just the things that you are telling us. And again, I was remiss to not remember that, because I remember the last conversation we had was along those lines also. Richard, you gonna plan any kind of exhibition or anything like that? Because certainly you have a load of photos.
Yeah, I have enough material. I do have enough material. I mean, because the images that I've seen, I've reviewed the whole all my all my images of Aurelia. There are really some stunning shots there. There's a few more that you could see on my Instagram page right now. Actually, if you just look for Richard Hola Belize, you'll see kind of the visual tribute that I put up for him. I think it was a collection of 5 images, not just the one of me and him, but 5 individual images of him. 3 of them I saw you guys use tonight, but the other 2 are pretty stunning as well. I'd like to do something like that, no, but again, I guess it would have to be virtual somewhat, from here for now at least, right? Because I'm not anywhere near Belize where I could actually have these enlarged and printed and exhibited. That's the way I prefer to do things. But I don't think it would be. I think it would be good to do that at any point in time. The tragic thing about Aurelia and the Palazzo, the heartbreaking thing about both of those guys who I photographed and have some pretty epic images of, is that they both passed. What disturbs me is their age. That they had so much more to give.
Oh yeah.
It may have been at the peak, because I almost feel like when these guys, when they jump 50, like you kind of have all this wisdom from your past. You're kind of in a different zone. And I would have loved to see what more they could have given, to us. I know Aurelia was working on some new projects. I think I saw a video that looked pretty cool, like he was doing a Carlos Santana kind of thing. He was dancing and he was in a suit, and I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, hey, come on, to try message out. He embraced some new elements, But again, if you just look at that video, those clips that they were rolling, again, the message was positive. It was a positive message. It was an uplifting one. So I do find it very hard to accept, that the man was just 55 years old when this happened on Monday.
Ariello came to my place, to my spot in the Bronx, right? He came like about 5 o'clock one evening, G Mike, picked up the guitar. And that man played till morning. The man don't let go the guitar, my brother. Everybody was amazed. The man eat and leave it, drink and leave it, and straight through. Francis said, man, he never seen nothing like that in his life before. The man called the man, sit down and the man get the guitar. The man said, you have to go out because I know him, you know what I mean? I know him, I know Andy, I know these guys. You dig what I'm saying? And the man started playing the guitar, man. And the man played the guitar from he came. He sat down and played that guitar from him from he come till morning, till daybreak. Everybody was like, wow, they never seen it like that before in their life. The man don't stop at all, man. That man left for
I don't even think that's our endurance matter. I don't think that's our endurance matter. I just want a reflection of the fact that he loved what he did. He loved it, and he was
passion. I'm talking passion. I'm not talking endurance. I'm talking mostly passion.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
He never did on a celebrity trip. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, all right, I had a celebrity and one of that the masses. He was, because he did that the time we met. He just showed up with a friend of ours, of course, and was hanging out. And the man, he was just basically down to earth, one of us, one of the guys in there with the talk and laugh and whatnot. It was incredible. I think that
Was
everybody
very much.
met him. Yeah. Go ahead.
It reminded me a lot like Andy Palacio, because Andy was very down to earth too, as far
Oh
as I
yeah.
could recall.
Oh yeah.
You know, just every time I met him before he became, well known, and he was just, well, he was always well known, but before he became international, and he was working with the government. I remember meeting him at certain functions and approaching him, and he would have done ready for talk to you and break ice. He was the guy who wouldn't wait for you to speak to him. He'd be like, hey. I really loved that about him. And I also felt Aurelio, even though there was, I guess, like you had said, a kind of a language barrier where English was concerned. I guess he had learned to speak it a little bit more later on. But there was still that kind of like, hey, brother, what's up? You know what I'm saying? That kind of embrace.
Amazing.
Yeah.
G. Michael, I want to share this real quick. He had came to Maine for the Maine American Folks Festival. And I remember at this point, I had a 6-year-old son. And I do want to mention that we are related through the Martinez, my mom and Martinez. And so when I, went, I make sure I got to the front of the stage and introduced myself and everything. And I reminded him, I said, when I met you as a teenager, you haven't been to Punta Gorda in a long time, and you didn't. I'm glad to hear you speaking English, really good. And he had a crowd of like Caucasian people just surrounded him, just amazed by him. And these people some of them were top class musicians from like all over the world. And they just was like basketing in his energy. And one spell he looked over at me and he said, "Hey, Susanna, how is my English?" And I said, you did do good, and he didn't speak that Creole English. He tried to speak English, and he speak English, like proper English.
Yeah.
And I just remember him asking me, he did an English check, like, how is it? How is
my
it
English?
sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, good, and he just navigate those people.
Speaking of your son, we know Aurelia has a son. I saw him in a concert with his son, actually, and they were performing together, dancing together. And I saw his son also doing a piece on a guitar. And he seems to have inherited the talent. And he seems like a young guy. Imagine when he gets to be older and develops that even more, no? Do you know his son, Richard? Did you take any pictures of him yet?
I got to connect with him on Facebook recently. So I don't know him personally, but I would encourage him to stay the course and try to continue to develop his skills. And, we're looking to people like him, new generation of people, for carry on the music and, that kind of tradition. And I think, the energy, if you want to call it that too, I think he's a prime candidate to kind of step in and take over and move forward the agenda,
Carry on the legacy, no? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Deidre wants to know, can you confirm if Aurelio is part Mosquito? A few Honduras news outlets reported he was Mosquito Garifuna. Any thoughts on that? That was for you, Susan.
That was for me. I am not 100% sure, but it would be, some of it would be the same people who went onto the Mustique Coast.
Well, Ariel is coming on. Ariel should be coming on in a little while. He would probably know more or less more about that. Ariel should be on in another half, I guess.
If they were to put
also too, Mike G, there's a lot of like folklore, like stories, like even with some of the songs, that they would that kind of came from the Mustique Island coast, that came up and got repeated right in there in Guatemala and Honduras as well. So that might give you a clue that it might be some of the same people, right?
You spoke of Hopkins, and I know that many people from PG also were close to him. Would if there was to be a tribute, if there was to put some kind of museum or something to his honor, where would it go? Dangriga,
I you know
Hopkins?
I would say Dangriga. I would say Dangriga. I would say Dangriga if he had my vote.
Why? Because he was closer to there, because there are more concentration of Garifuna people there. Which one?
Yeah, and two, he worked closely with a lot of those artists there. I don't think he even got as far vision wise with some of the artists there that he might have wanted for them. But he worked organically with a lot of the artists and 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 I think if they would do a studio there in Dangriga and be able to offer some sort of legal assistance for their recording and their music and their art, I think it would be beneficial because that was one of the barriers that he vocally would talk to a lot of these artists about not having access to a platform to. I think so. I think Dangriga would be like my center place that I would choose.
I hear you. You run. Take a note of that from now. I'm not sure the right, but I need for when you get there, you know one of the things that we need for work plan, right? Let me
I
introduce.
agree.
Let me introduce our co-host, Jojo, Jose. Can you see? Uh,
I'm saying,
Joe Coe, former minister, former mayor, um, current advocate. Joe, anything to add to the Aurelio narrative? Because we certainly we're spending the first part giving tribute to him, no?
well, what I would have liked to see for Belize indeed is a place, what maybe you could akin it to like a hall of fame, where Belizeans who we need to revere and remember as heroes that have served this country. That is where I would like people like him to go. In
Yeah.
other words, he's first a Belizean. And yes, we can be a Mestizo, we can be a Creole, and we can be a Garifuna. But it's the variety that is the beauty of us. So there should be a place where we'll all go, where we have served this country. And unfortunately, that is what we should be advocating for.
Go ahead, Sue.
Gee, I would just want to say one thing quickly. I think a person who would have a lot of information about Aurelio is, I don't know if you'd be able to get access to him, but Ivan Duran. When I did all those wonderful portraits of Aurelio, it was actually for Stone Tree Records. We had got a location in San Ignacio, and Ivan was there. It was a big day. We also did portraits of Calypso Rose and the Garifuna Collective and another artist from Trinidad. But I think he, really, I could imagine the news of Aurelio's passing must have brought him to tears, because those guys were really close, and he had produced on several of his albums, and I know Ivan's passion for bringing that music into the studio is there, and I know he and Aurelio and Andy, they are all connected, bonded.
And
So
Paul
I think he would
also.
have insight. Sorry?
Yeah. Paul also. I think Paul Navarro was also close to him too, because he
Yes,
produced.
all of them. All of them. We're talking about the young guys.
Yeah, Lynn Lalou is
Yeah,
saying that she
definitely.
saw him perform.
Absolutely.
Lynn says she saw him perform for the first time at the Youngs in New York. Yeah, he was that kind of guy. Like everywhere he showed up, he would make his presence felt, and you would, when he left, there was somebody was there.
Joe. Joe,
Yeah.
1 minute, Joe. Susan is setting up somewhere. She's quiet, but hopefully we'll get her to set up one of these kinds of stuff. Cause she have a spot that she's doing something that would be almost in the area you're talking about, Joe. So hopefully we could talk Susan into setting up a museum type Hall of Fame stuff on a piece of land she got. All of us go get up. She laugh. You convince her to do it. I think she have it in mind, but she's not saying anything. But
today I was talking to a young man from Dangriga actually, and it's kind of like definitely some sort of justice. Even it's sad that Aurelio passing has really affected us, but yeah, at the same time too, it's some sort of justice going on, where he knows about the temple project for Sephora, which is the St. Vincent Black, in PG, and it's the Carib Reserve land, and there's not much there. I think they're just trying to establish a physical office, that would have an outdoor bathroom and a place you can wash your hand, and they're hoping to have this office be like a meeting spot, or you can come and print, or even do live like this and communicate with the greater nation. And they don't really have a grocery store. The water that supplies Punta Gorda town comes from this reserve, but then there's not much profit that this reserve can say, hey, this money comes from WASA. And so there's a lot of things that is needed for sure. And I greatly believe that this community deserve a Garifuna temple. And today it was suggested to me that whenever that does manifest, to name it, to give it the tribute to Aurelio Martinez, and so that was brought up today, and I thought that was a good idea, because I mean that's where I met him as a teenager, and I know what he did for the spirit of the people around me. It's definitely
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I say something else? One more thing before we move on.
Yes.
G Mike is adamant about unity. So even though it would be a Garifuna site, or in his name or whatever, we would still like somewhere to be all inclusive. Even though
Oh
it's
yeah, for
Garifuna,
sure.
even though
Yeah.
we have Belizean artists, we have Lord Rayban, we have people that need to be recognized as well, as Joe has mentioned. So
Yeah.
I don't mind it being in Toledo. We don't mind it being in his name, but we would also like to be inclusive. And
For sure.
I think that's my friend G Mike biggest concern about the division type thing. So anyway, I'm okay. I just wanted to state that.
Yeah.
I for the record,
Well,
I just don't.
the guys they have. Yeah.
I don't think you're hearing
Sorry.
me, Richard.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, all right, go ahead, though. Go ahead. Say what you were saying. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
what I
ahead.
was gonna say, guys, is that there is actually a couple of projects in the works. As far as I know, when I left Belize, I had attended the launch of a Belize Museum of Music. I can't recall what exactly they were calling it. It's upstairs of the government house. It's a very ambitious project. Yasser Musa was involved, and of course Evan Duran, who we spoke about a moment ago. And they were archiving all these great Belizean artists, and trying to do like a compilation and a place to kind of like know who these people were and what kind of music they made. I'm sure Aurelio is in there. I'm sure Andy is in there, Paul, absolutely. But there is kind of like these notions of kind of preserving something, of the past, and of course the present and the future. I suppose the space will be there for upcoming artists. As far as like a building to honor a hero, that idea also existed with the George Price Center for Peace and Development in Belmopan. I actually have an exhibit there that's a permanent exhibit of the last portraits of Mr. Price and images of the state funeral, which we spoke about last time. Do you remember that?
Right.
I think the idea you guys brought today, which is pretty cool, excited me, was two things. One, that the Garifuna people should have something there in Dangriga to celebrate their icons past and present. And another idea is more of like a Belize, space for celebrate Belizean heroes of all kinds, artists, politicians, cultural leaders, musicians, all of these people. I think these are the messages that we need to push forward. These are the people we need to highlight. I mean, I open the newspaper or I tune into Belize News, man, I am so tired of seeing all the bad news, right? And you always wonder for kids, right, who they could look up to, who are the heroes. it's very important for us as a country to establish one space and highlight these remarkable individuals. I believe that would be great.
Yeah. It's terrible because a lot of ways sitting out of violence. I saw today a young man who I know well. His son was killed, and just one lot of the shooting, and that are the news that we're getting on the media, and it's terrible. We have to try mixing some of the good stuff, man. Now, for context, let me say where Glenn Fulham right up because it's important. He's saying he collect a lot of songs that are really
Man, freeze.
Yeah.
G. Michael, I could probably read it. It says, "I've collected many hours of Aurelio Martinez over the many years. He's been visiting California. When I have time, I'll be editing and sharing one of our Belize in the old days group. One on our Belize old days group. So it must be a Facebook group that
Yeah.
name.
Belize in the old days, the private Facebook group.
And I know that guy too, Glenn Fuller. He does a lot of Belizean. He has a lot of good recordings of just over the course of the time. I think he kind of took it on as a part or a passion, and he's got some really good imagery of Belizean, especially in the diaspora too.
I would like to add something here, gentlemen, is that I think all nations should have a soul. I have been close at my age to many of our great heroes in the areas of the literary arts, in the music. Andy and me were very good friends. So is Lord Raybon and I, and so is Lila Clark, and all these great people. But there's one thing I recall some years ago when I was involved with a good friend of mine, Glenn Tillett. We met with a group from the Caribbean who was through the Caribbean Development Bank was looking to foster these kind of developments. And I said to him, I think the music, the lyrics, the melodious voices is in fact the soul of this nation. So the passing of men like Andy, I wasn't too close to Martinez. But the point I want to make is that I think music is in fact the soul of a nation. And it's for that reason, yes, we had a great loss just not long ago, Pat Cacho. I was a younger boy, but he was close to me when I was in government in the early years. And he was a very distinguished person. But somehow to me, I see this part of the performing arts. I'm not into creating music and songs. And I don't have to be the cook for no good food taste. I can tell you this. Belize to me have produced artists, people who sing and perform. And I have been all over this world, in Europe, in South America, North America. And I am telling you, we have talents and we have skills in this country. So when I listen to the music of our people, my soul really moves with it. And I think that is the soul of this nation. And that is why they should be revered now.
Mr. Koye, you still got it.
Yeah.
Still got it.
Hey guys, can I introduce one of our guests tonight too, Mr. Ariel Hamilton? Welcome, and you can introduce yourself to us and the audience.
Well, thank you very much. Y'all could hear me. Y'all could hear me good?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, give thanks, man. Give thanks for the opportunity. It's always a great honor for coming. The cast here. I am from Musketia, from Bluefields directly. And I'm always here and willing to collaborate in whatever capacity. And so give thanks for having me, man. Give thanks for having me. I never know anything about this incident that took place. I did say that they had a plane crash there in the Bay Islands, and I just actually looking on it right now. I think that this brethren traveled to Orinoco before. Orinoco is a Garifuna community in Musketia, and I'm sure that he has performed there. So this is a great loss, and I never too much. I just learning about it right now. as I'm turning in. Yes.
Mr. Hamilton, I do want to share that he and the Palacio actually was assigned. It was an assignment called the literacy assignment, and this is language, right? This is,
Yeah.
and that they went to Mustique, and that Pacific Village was where they were sent. And I think that visit they talk about a lot. I think it's even in a song, because that really kind of amplified the need for them to have really sing Garifuna music as a way to promote people learning it and keeping it. Because when they met a man from Mustique, he was so surprised that these younger Garifuna men were even speaking Garifuna, right? And I'm sure that the elder didn't know he was meeting two of the superstars of the culture, but he frightened them and let them know that this language is not spoken here anymore. And they had brought like a sense of hope to this elder, and that was one of the stories that they both share, that it kind of put them on a quest to really pay attention to their music and sing it and carry the language, because they were sent to that to Mustique on a literacy assignment, and kind of observe but kind of scan and see what was the literacy and the poverty and the learning level of these people.
So when you say you're talking about Mosquitia
Yeah.
in Honduras, near, yes, okay. Definitely, man. That's another thing to that in the community of Orinoco, where the language, the Garifuna language is almost wiped away. I mean, I think with the exception of just few elders still speaking it, but they're trying to install it back again. Definitely. But it's something we're losing.
There was a question earlier from Miss Deidre Gillett, and I think it was more geared towards you, who's there from Mustique. And I think the question was asking if Garifuna people were from Mustique as well.
Well, around 1820, in the 1820s.
Here is the question. Let me read it to you as she write it. That way you can answer properly for it. It says, Susan Corrales, can you confirm if Aurelio is part Mustico?
Mosquito.
A few Honduran news outlet reported that he is Mosquito Garifuna.
Yeah, Mosquito.
Sorry.
Yeah, Mosquito. Mosquito is very likely, because if you're coming from that region of Honduras, they call it Mosquitia. And yeah, and there is a lot of mixture, there in that area. So it's very possible. I wouldn't know personally, because I don't know the brother. I don't know much about the brethren, but it's very likely that he could be part Mosquito. So Mosquito is the people, Mosquitia is the country. Okay. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think my response to Deidre was just from the storytelling part of the Garifuna storytelling. Some of the stories is the same stories that the people in Mystico had repeat, and it's the same story that the ones in in Honduras and Guatemala and Belize also repeat as well. So there is some. If you look at the gene pool, you can say, okay, these people also not only share genes, but they share a storyline of the experience that they have had. So that would be like an identity, a unique identity that they would share that could maybe link them, closely.
Mr. Aaron.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for your patience, my brother.
No problem at all, man. This is educational.
You okay. Let's get into a little bit of what not only what just happened, but what the future will look like, as far as how the political landscape look in Belize, and how you planning to be a part of that. I know I'll be talking to Aaron, and Aaron, we want to discuss some of the global politics too. But for right now, we could start with Belize and how everything played out and what you think and the money thing, the little thing that transpired and stuff. And I know Mr. Joe go have a little something. I don't know Mr. Joe go have a little something to say about that. But Aaron, let's hear from your experience and what you witnessed over the last year, coming up to this time to the elections and stuff like that.
All right. Well, if we go back as far as a year or so ago, I would have to say that the demise at the UDP, that is separation, the infighting definitely won't help anybody during what election run, and the popularity of the current government seem to be just very obvious and clear. And if you have a divided opposition, you could easily take advantage of that, which with the popularity of the current GOB and its members,
is exactly what happened.
Easy. At least that's my point of view.
I mean, it's viable too.
Yeah.
It's viable too. Lately we've been talking about before G Mike, hopefully come back on before G Mike, we were talking about you need opposition, and Mr. Joe will attest to that. That you could ask him. He will be the first to let you know that you need, as far as checks and balance. But maybe a third party influence could help too. So, what's your idea on that, and when will you be coming back to say back into it?
As far as a third party goes, I believe that the third parties that we have seen in Belize tend to be more prevalent around the election time. We need a steady,
sustainable,
yes,
yeah, from beginning to end.
Exactly. And then there's no law or rule that says you have to have two major parties. If you have a sustained third party with dedicated year after year people, then slowly but surely that turns from a third party to one of the mass parties. And then you really have some possibilities at true democracy at that point, because you give people more than two options, which I think that many in Belize might see that as too much right now. But I think we tend to be, and I might mash some can, but we might be exhausted with the same recycled options.
You think?
I feel so. I personally.
But how about logistical? How about too comfortable? How about the same old? How about that part of it? How about just going along with what's going along? You know what I mean? Like for years, I think the situation has been like that too.
I think that if you are unhappy with one group and you go vote in the next group and then eventually get tired of them and then you go back to the next group, you're not necessarily changing anything. You just recycle.
Okay.
And that, I think we do have a very bad habit of just re-electing recycled politicians.
That's the comfort part I'm talking about right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just go back forth, right, Joe?
I like to take advantage of this opportunity to transition from the literary arts of music and songs to the calling of politics, a very noble calling. And I sense something too in my coming up, and I grew up in the political environment because my mother was a founding member of the party and I was 8 years old. But you know, when I listen to music and I listen to songs, if we listen to it deeply, we'll better understand to know the purpose of our politics. Because what they are telling us in those songs, that we must be there for each other. In effect, it is telling if you look at my allegiance to the People's United Party will remain unshaken. I go to my grave with it. Because the principle that defined the party was grounded in the gospel imperative of being our brothers and sisters' keeper. If you listen to our songs, of our great artists, within and without. You listen to the great Bob Marley, you listen to Lord Rayburn, you listen to Andy. They are all telling us something as to how we are to live. So I believe in the philosophy that is grounded in the gospel imperative as to how we are to live. I have heard over these elections that people are saying, something wrong with the democracy and democracy is fragile. The problem is not democracy. The problem is the failure of us to apply democracy. The emergence in these last elections had nothing to do with our democratic system. It was an issue that one of our main political parties, for reasons that we all may know, began to explode. And when they did that, in effect, they were violating their fundamental obligation under this constitution. So I must give credit to one of two on the PUP side, particularly one minister. When I heard him said, I would never be gloating over the failure of the UDP. He said, because the truth about it, it takes out of me the fight to want to really be there with the fire that I had, he said, in the absence of opposition. So it is regrettable, ladies and gentlemen, that what happened is unprecedented. And we must make sure it never happens again.
Respect, Mr. Joe, respect.
Never should happen again in this country. If we want to have a robust democracy, we cannot have a garden of our lilies. The beauty of the garden is the variety of it, my brother. And that is what we are. We are Garifunas, we are mestizos, we are Creoles. But there lies our richness and our beauty that we must learn to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. Just love one another as he loved us. So for those who aspire to get into this noble calling, make sure you do it like the artists. And I'm coming back to the artists. We get a good example from the artist. He doesn't paint for the money. He paints for the love of his painting, his artistic talents.
Say it again.
So he doesn't follow the money, but because of the love he has for it, the money follows him. So let the politicians be like the artists. Do it for the love of what it is. That's your intrinsic gratification. Don't follow the money. Do what is good for this country, and the money will follow you, and all boats will float. That's my input for now.
Correct.
Richard, I haven't seen you for some time. Where you been? I'm referring to Mr. Holder.
Rich is chilling right now. Rich is in mourning. We are all in mourning.
We are.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask Ariel a question. Sorry, Rich. Let me ask Ariel a question. Ariel, the last time we spoke, you was indulging and deep into getting your what should I call it? Your group setup. I know there was an election and certain people selected to certain positions and stuff. How is that going? Could we get a little update on that before we move on?
Yeah, most definitely, brother. I give thanks. Deetra, just to follow up with what I was talking about with the Virgin Aurelio, Deetra posted and said in the message that the Virgin is from Cabo Gracias a Dios. If I think, I'm not sure, but I know for certain that there is a place called Cabo Gracias a Dios in the Mosquitia side. So the whole region is Mosquitia, but you have Nicaragua and Honduras, Puerto Barda. So right there where the outlet of the Coco River, what they call Rio Coco, there is a cape, and that is what them call Cabo Gracias a Dios. And if that's the area where Deetra talking about that, because I also think that there is one more into the what they would call the Honduras area. I think there is two areas there that they call Cabo Gracias a Dios, but I am not sure. But I am certain that on our side there is one place we name Cabo Gracias because that's where my mother actually come from there. We call it Cape, but they also call it in Spanish, they call it Cabo Gracias a Dios. So if indeed the brethren come from there, then
It might be
it
your
is
family.
not my family, but definitely it would be mosquito. It would have some kind of mosquito blood for sure, because the area there is 100% mosquito people. All right. Yes. So we had our election, and it was a very successful election. If you are that this election did come about because of the African Union having a window of opportunity for African people in this part of the world organize themselves. It turned out also that it was a great opportunity for Creole people who come from Mosquitia and San Andres unify, because in our history, in our historical context, we was always one people. But because of politics again, Nicaragua and Honduras, Colombia having conflict with each other, our separation was strengthened because of this. And so this is the opportunity that we have inside of these elections that we had, for us to unite as one people. As a matter of fact, one brethren from San Andres Island is who went out as the representative for us. This brethren by the name of Joseph Barrera Kelly, and I went out as the deputy. So this is a very new thing. It's not a new thing in the sense because 20 years ago the same thing was attempted, through organizations like the Black Organization of Central America, which is throughout Central America. I think is based actually in Ceiba, if I'm not mistaken, Honduras for sure, and so this was started back then. But because of politics again, because politics have a tendency for getting into everything, what is progress of our people. And I can, I can sympathize with what Mr. Joe is saying, but I also think that, we have, it's like the change that is coming is not something where anybody could stop. And I feel like, I don't feel like politics, the way how we know it as traditionally, is going to sustain itself in the future that is coming. Because I more think that we as a human species are going to have to gravitate towards each other more on a survival level. And when I say survival level, what I'm talking about is that the depletion of the earth resources is a serious thing. We're not really taking these things into consideration. And it's kind of like when you living in your yard with your family, you're going to look out for your family. And if we don't have this kind of thinking, if we don't start, we're going to be forced to think this way. Because, like, say, for example, rich people don't doing these things them already. Them taking care of themselves. You understand me? And as usual, we have a tendency for lag behind. So we have to be very, very careful when we keep on fooling around with these things. Them we haven't really served us any purpose, other than dividing our people. So we have to be very careful with them kind of things. Them. But yes, brethren, answering your question, it was a very successful election, and it's a very new thing. We are all learning from each other, and so it's a process, But
could you give us a little breakdown, Sir Hamilton? Could you give us a little breakdown of the system that you all have, your political system?
It's not it's not necessarily a political system in the sense it was an election because we had to choose a representative, but it's not a political system in itself. Why we had to do it in a what they would call democratic way is because that was a criteria for what we were doing for what would be the African Union sake. So they wanted an election where people get elected, but it's not a political, definitely not a political organization in that sense.
Okay, I see.
All right.
Speaking of elections, let's say happy belated birthday to our former Prime Minister Said Musa, who I believe he's 80 something. Joe, do you know?
81. He's 81.
His birthday was on it.
Yeah, in
And
March,
they had a launch, a book of kind of memoirs of some sort by Yasser at the Image Factory called. You do remember the name of this book? It has an interesting "No Watch Me, Watch Yourself," taken from one of his speeches. I think
famous lines.
Say what?
Taken from one of his famous lines.
Richard, can I remind you of what he said? He said that in the parliament to the then leader of the opposition, Mr. Barrow. He said, "Don't watch me, watch yourself."
Classic moment.
Could you tell us about the book?
Well, I have not seen the book.
About the book.
I have a few pictures in that book. It's a collection of images that span the decades of his career in politics and I guess in law. And, you know, I am going to get a copy of the book. I believe it's $20 at the Image Factory. I'm not in Belize, man. I'll pick that up pronto. I had his last book with Malice to None. I believe that was the name of it. Yeah, I had that one. I read that. But this is a new one. And I like to collect factory books. So, and I like Mr. Musa because, you know, that's how me and you met Angie Michael when the PUP was doing a thing at that time, right? And I was running around as a young dude, getting in front of the cameras and capturing as many pictures as I could. That in itself would have been a great exhibition just to kind of present. There were really so many epic moments. I think people need to remember those things, you know. So I have them safe, don't worry. We'll get to it one of these days. And you know, one more thing, Mr. Koi, you had said about the artists, you know, being involved in politics, you know, and you said through the music. I was listening to some of the things you were saying just now, and we have to remember too that Aurelio was involved in politics in Honduras as well and made an impact there too, just to prove your point, right? You know, yeah. I think I agree with these ideas, you know, because I don't know how you guys feel about it collectively. I mean, Ariel, you spoke about caring about each other and being concerned about the resources that the world remains with to sustain all of us on it. When you think about, I know G will have something to say about this, Donald Trump, who is just kind of like agitating everything, especially environmental, you know, concerns, you know, is a bit alarming to me personally. And there's a lot of separation in the world now. There's a lot of, you know, division. It's us and them mentality instead of us coming together, you know. What's your take on that? I would like to know. Ariel?
My take. I'm gonna be honest with you and upfront, you know, Bridget. I think them kind of things that were happening right now have to happen. You understand me? Because this is what going to make we look on each other more closely, because it's like it's just like the political thing. You understand me? Like, you know, our region and, you know, our areas where we is then. Where I said that we haven't really been benefiting because of any political. I don't care anywhere you want to look on it, any which way you want to look on it. If you look on it in Mosquitia, if you look on it in San Andres, if you look on it in Honduras, if you look on it in Belize, everywhere you go is the same thing. It's the same carbon copy. You understand me? And so when we see these kind of things happening, our people not developing educationally, spiritually, any kind of way where you want to look on it. You understand me?
I agree.
And so when these things them going on with Donald Trump, and so like how Mr. Coy talked earlier about democracy and democracy losing, the United States is supposed to be the biggest representation of democracy, and I have not seen democracy work in this country from I don't know when, because when I come to terms and seeing so that democracy don't exist in this country is when I knock down the Twin Tower them, and that's when I realized that there is no democracy in this country. From them time, I start seeing say that these people have a full control on this country. You understand me? And from then I know say this is a big plan. Then these people them plan things to the T. You understand me? And meanwhile, we running around trying to say, well, make we be democratic then, and this is the end result of it. No, I don't disagree with democracy, or I don't disagree or agree with any political system that could work for the benefit of the people, which is the principal philosophical idea of every political system that was ever introduced in human existence. But we also have to realize and know so that these political ideologies was marketed to people throughout the world because of people who want, say for example, want to start certain type of business. Because say for example, right, let's say I would be a man who could have spread Rastafari throughout some part of the world. And through say I spread Rastafari through this particular spot of the world now, then I sell garments, what is Rastafari garments. I grow ganja and sell to people and all of these different kind of things. And this is what a lot of people don't realize, that is how these philosophical ideas was spread throughout the world. And that's the reason why people, because if you have certain kind of inclination towards some things, you can read books on that. And if I sell in the book them, if I sell in the education, if I sell in the religion them, you see, but we don't look on the big picture in this kind of way. Instead, like say for example, what we doing here right now, all are we doing the same thing, all are we in some kind of way bringing consciousness and trying to help out our people in some kind of way, shape our farm. All are we doing the same thing? You understand me? So why is it that when we get together, it always seems like if we're not talking on the same sheet of music? You understand me? Even though we're doing the same thing, we're doing the same thing, because what Uno doing and trying to bring consciousness to people in Belize and trying to help out the situation in whatever way kind of way possible, we're doing the same thing. And it's important also to realize and say that even though a youth may be talking in the ghetto about shooting up and this and that and the next, them only expressing what they're living. You understand me? No matter where it is where you go in the world, you see. But everybody have to see things through their reality and how them could express it. And so that's why sometimes, and I think maybe that is why sometimes we does look like if we clashing, but in reality, we are doing the same thing. And there is where our intelligence have to come now to say, well, okay, how it is that we were doing what we're doing could start in a way like when you're filing a machete, you understand me, where everybody filing themselves into what one message then, where we could start to help out each other in a kind of way and work more in a cooperation then. We don't all have to be the same, but, work towards, these kind of things. Then.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Ariel?
Sure, sir.
If we accept the three fundamental principles that underpins democracy, by the people, for the people, and of the people, do you have a problem with any of those?
I don't have no problem with none. I don't have a problem with communism. I don't have a problem with capitalism. I don't have a problem with no political party.
No, what I'm saying
in philosophical intention.
The fundamental principles that underpin democracy is by the people, for the people, and of the people. I believe it is good. And this brings me back now to just tell you what. When I was in college, we had a debate. At that time, the Green Revolution was supposed to be embracing the world. That was the thing. And the debate was that, did the Green Revolution fail? And there was some who were arguing that it failed. Our side argued it didn't fail. It just wasn't applied. So I think what we need to step back now and ask ourselves, it's not that democracy is failing, it's that we're just not applying it. So I look at my country now in terms of our constitution, where we have a commission set up now to review it. And yes, I agree that we should do a review of it. But the truth about it, it hasn't failed. It's just that we were not applying it. So I think when I listen to the great leader, what's the guy name in America? The Farrakhan, I think it's him. He made a very good point. He said, when you look at wealth, he says we meaning the black people of America and others who are supposed to be in the lower income bracket. It is we who are making these people rich. He said, because we need to understand what is wealth. So we take our money and we buy the goods then. In other words, we are buying things that we don't need with money that we don't have. But if we were to say, listen, just giving you an example, that we will now patronize the people who we believe are with us, then you can use the power of democracy to bend the will of those to what you want. So if you elect these people, they are the people you are electing, and if they turn around and want to pretend as if though no, they have the power, then who is to be blamed? It is we, the people, who delegate authority to you to manage our affairs. So we must make you accountable. And I think one of the failings, wherever we may be, whether it is in Africa, whether it's in South America, North America, or in Belize, democracy to me has one of the best chance for the freedom of people. If we, the people, can participate behind the ballot box and hold the elected accountable. That's what I think that is strong. We have to begin to hold them accountable. And I will end with my quote that I usually use for the chairman with Socrates when he expressed his concern about democracy, because he felt that it is a good idea. But for it to work, you have to have a sophisticated, well-knowledgeable citizenry. He said, what is the use of having free speech and you have nothing to say? So I think we do have a chance if we come together as the people and say this is the system we want, but participate behind the ballot box and put our money into those companies and corporations that have been reciprocating to us. Because we have the power, we just have to know how to use it. And that is what democracy gives us. That's my...
I do want to jump in because I was told, I think in my first college class, that we don't talk religion and politics. And I said, you know what? One day I'm going to find me some friends who are going to be with me live on air and we're going to be talking politics because it's important. And even if you buy a pound of flour, you're still engaging in politics. And so I'm glad you guys are here tonight with us. And, I would like for us to also dive into identifying Mr. Aurelio Martinez as a social justice warrior, but advocate as well. And I do want to lift some of the issues that plagues. He was known for like cross-border issues, where he wasn't only identifying issues with just the people there in La Ceiba in Honduras. He was coming to these other Garifuna communities and other Black communities, and of course other communities from other regions of the world, and he was sharing these social and environmental problems that really is a barrier and is a plague to this community, and one of them really and truly being land ownership, but also the access that the individual residents, if you don't have the money, right, and you can't jump into the real estate of the region that you live in that has prime estate, you become a target. And so he definitely speaked up on the corruption that he sees happen within the community. Even if you're not selling your land, people like to say that, these people are selling their land. But no, these people, the reality of it is that these people are getting killed for these land that they own generationally. And so we see that happen a lot in Belize, where land ownership is a huge deprived. It's really a deprived. When you talk about the food insecurity in Belize, and you're not addressing land ownership, it seems like it doesn't even make sense. It seems like you're still dependent on somebody to feed you or to house you or to give you a place to stay. And so, if one of you guys want to touch on maybe the importance of land ownership, and what is the push for that there in Belize or in Mystique?
Mosquitia.
Mustikia.
Mosquitia. Mosquitia.
Mustikia.
Yeah, like say musket, but you say
Mus-
mosquitia. Mosquitia.
Yeah.
I write
Okay.
it in the comment, you know.
Yes.
I want to jump back to what Mr. Coe mentioned about not using democracy to our advantage. And I want to get way back to colonialism and its impact on today, because I think it's very important that we address that system of colonialism and its long-reaching effects on such a small population in Belize. We have what, 430,000 people in the country now,
Yeah.
something like that, and we continue to see the same names that continue to grow in political seats, positions, and whatnot. It's very rare that you get somebody new, completely new. And I believe that to apply democracy properly, we have to actually have an openness, a vulnerability almost to newness. And I can't remember who it was that mentioned being comfortable with where we are right now and not wanting to rock that boat for something new. I think that, especially in the South, where growth has been slower, and that's putting it nicely, there are certain names that people would hear and just immediately get angry. And I'll tie that into land ownership. There, for example, there's like one family who own about 60% of Gangriga and its surrounding areas.
Are you talking about the Grabanis?
I know I can't. Vicky said I call
I'll
name.
call the name.
I know I call name, but I mean, you have to look into what creates a system that causes that. I know people that go to the banks, get loans, can't afford it, and then that somebody from that family will pick it up. They pay for it, but they don't pick it up, or they are gifted lands. Um, Things like that happen in this democracy a little bit too much, I believe. So, how do we properly apply democracy when socially and I guess economically we are stagnant? I think that in the South, especially, we really need to look at enhancing the economic development down south so that more people can afford to maintain that land ownership. And it's easy to just pinpoint one family or two family names throughout the history of Belize where will always come up over and over, no matter what party is in power. But let's look at everyone else. Like you always hear about the 1% in America. Belize have their own 1%. And we really need to start looking at how best to develop everyone else economically. And my biggest push, the education. And I have done a lot to improve or to try to improve education and access to education to the youth at Angriga. And that will continue to be my push. But we do need to do more economically so that we can preserve the lands that people already own, I think.
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Welcome back, G Mike.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I listened there for a while. Couple of points. Susan mentioned something, and I hear it a lot, where people say two things you shouldn't discuss: religion and politics. And I say foolishness. Those are the two things that you should discuss. Because politics run the physical aspect, and religion runs the spiritual aspect. There's only two parts of man, and that are it, the body and the soul. So I don't see why we would say don't discuss those two, but we should. Politics now, and this is where I part ways with Ariel, because I don't think that you can say, well, you can't put politics in it. Politics is everything. Politics is what governs, and you need some leadership. You need governance of a nation or group. You're going to family. You have to have some type of politics in framework in that family for it to function properly. So I don't think we should ever say we give politics a dirty name, and I agree with Joe on this one, that it is just that we don't apply the necessary aspects of it to make it work. We concentrate on the wrong things. As far as land ownership, I personally don't think there should be any land ownership. People should use the land, but we should not use it for profit. You can't buy a piece of land from the government to go and to speculate and sell it back for a huge amount of money, many times to a foreigner that's coming in with no interest of the country at heart. It's totally ridiculous. So I have different views on some of these things, and they go across the grain at times and gets me in trouble, but I can handle it. But that's my point on that, no?
I would like to comment on the issue of land. When we were moving towards decolonization for the country, we knew that, yes, a good amount of the land was under the control of in the case of Tate and Lyle, because the mainstay of the country was sugar. Now, what did the PUP do in revolutionizing the country? Is that the government, the PUP government, begin to acquire land. They acquired land from Tate and Lyle and take what were cane cutters and made them into farmers. And then from there, the land policy was being developed that national lands would never be sold in the first instance. That if you want to develop it for commercial, industrial purposes, or if you want it for residential purposes, you would first have to lease it. And then the lease, in the case of residential, you would have 3 years in which to develop it. If in the 3 years, for whatever reason, you couldn't, then you can get an extension. And then when it comes to the commercial lands, the hundreds of acres, it was not to be sold. You would put forward what you want to use it for. And then you will be given a lease. And when you develop it for what it was supposed to intend for, then eventually you will be able to buy it. Now, along the way, we abandoned those. And what we end up with, even for the benefit of the people, the low-income people, for example, who we think need a piece of land. So what we do now, we no longer lease the land. We give it away. And then when you give it to the low-income person, he cannot develop it, then you sell it to somebody. So the person who can afford to buy will be able to buy. Now, when you look at land moving from national ownership to private ownership, government never should sell and never had ever been selling land at market rate. If it does, then the low-income people will never be able to get land. So what government does, it will sell at a rate advised by a committee set up in the lands department. And when the land is out there under the lease, you must develop it first. What had gotten out of hand, and I think Mr. Aaron, honestly, was your father the doctor?
Yes, sir.
I knew him well. A matter of fact, there was a book he wrote. And I owned the printing press that was to print the book. But I owned it, but I wasn't a printer. So I knew your father too, no? Now, the point is to be made that you made a valid point. What happened? much of that land afterwards in large amount. In fact, they amended the Finance and Audit Reform Act that was dealing with land, that we were not selling land to foreigners in the beginning unless it comes to the cabinet or the parliament. So we had some restrictions, and then we loosened up. And what happened? I will end at this point. We thought some of those people who have enriched themselves from land, they used to complain about big government. Oh, big government isn't good. We don't want big government. Big government is wasteful. The truth about it, the problem is not big government. The problem is the big money that has come into government to take it over. So you see those some people with those hundreds of acres of land, they never did develop them, but they bought them, which should never have been sold to them. So those are the inequities that we find. But it's not the democracy. It is simply the same people who we elected betrayed us. And where so many lands end up into people's hands, which they are not even developing them.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of acres. So the day should come when these things may have to be acquired back. The problem with that now is that when you buy it for $1 and you have to acquire it, and that is where the law should have been changed and they didn't. When you go to acquire it, or you don't pay them, you can't get back for the $1. No, you have to buy at market rate. So you sell at a social rate, but if you want to buy back, you have to buy at market rate. They were to amend the law to say that the government have to acquire it back. You want to pay the same price you sell it for plus the interest. So there's these errors, these things that went wrong, Mr. Honest. I agree with you, but we can correct them. We can.
But this brings us to a sore point. A 6.9 million deal, and this is something I will always think the PUP owes an explanation to the people about. When they sell a land for like a couple of $100,000 and bought it back for 6.9 million to build a hospital that was to be built on the university land in Belmopan. It was supposed to be a medical hospital teaching stuff, a part of it, a whole university program. So why not put it on the university grounds that was being given free of cost? We have never heard an explanation. When asked, the Prime Minister say, "Me tired of talk about that, me no want to talk about that again." Seriously? And that's where we stand and leave it at that. Okay, leave it so. And every PUP fall in line to say, all right, yes, we have to support this government with this, even if it's wrong. And this is where we're going wrong. So we have to support the government. We have to toe that party line. Or we get victimized, we get blacked out, we don't got no access to nothing, no kind of services from the government. And it's totally unfair. Who is going to bail that cat? Who will speak up and make it happen the way it ought to happen?
But Mr. G. Mike, it's not just unfair. It's unconstitutional. There is a violation of the Constitution done, and I'll keep repeating. I'm not talking about PUP and UDP. I'm talking in the generic sense, where both sides have violated the Constitution, in my judgment. And the reason why, if you have the right to associate with the party of your choice, if you have the right to belong to the group of your choice, why is it that if I am a PUP and when UDP is in, I am victimized? That's against the Constitution. Why is it that if I am a UDP and when PUP is in, I can be victimized? So let's come back to the 6.9 million. Yes, I spoke out against it. And yes, there was some within my party. Some of them who will be able to speak to me in front of my face. But behind my back, what you joke with? What you talk about again? You don't say the thing gone correct. How the thing went correct, man? If they had said from the beginning that we're going to replace the hospital there in Belmopan, which is supposed to be the regional hospital, that would have been different. But you say you're going to build a hospital which is coming under the university, that's a different type of hospital. Therefore, every effort should have been made to build a hospital on the university campus, and not where they built it. But
so
again,
we might have to let bygones be bygones and start from here. But I think we're getting out some trouble too when we say the one thing, both sides do it. Because then no, you know, got nobody for address nothing. One could point to the other and say, yeah, then do it too, or then do it first. So I think we have to start from now with the government we have in place and ensure. And I heard the Prime Minister say he's not going to tolerate any of that. And I think we have to hold him to his word. We have to, as it comes about, let us stand up for it. If we have to go out there and demonstrate when something is done wrong, because you will get news soon of things going wrong, because things do go wrong, in particular when you have a government in place with such a huge majority. There's no opposition in the House. In fact, the couple of voices that we have are now silenced. I don't see the ones that they have in there. No disrespect to you, Aaron, but people in there under your banner have no voice. They can't talk. Well, who's gonna raise objections now in a cohesive manner? A manner that the people can understand, a comprehensive way. I don't know. It looks dismal, but we can't give up. We can't just say, and I see somebody post just now on the thing that, oh, Belize's done this. We cannot just assume that attitude. We have to say, this will work. We will make this work. I don't know if any of you guys heard I was sharing it, the Prime Minister of Jamaica made a very profound speech talking about because now, and somebody will say, let Trump out there, but we can't, because we're in this thing together. And they're sending a lot of people back home. And he's saying, let them come. If they're Banya, then Banya, basically, where we are the Senate. Let them come, but let them know that when they come, they have to bring something positive and add to what we have, and not contribute to the problems that we face. And this is what we have to worry about, and these are the things we have to work on. I don't know that the stuff as far as going back to Ariel saying that with it deplete the resources of the earth and all of that. I think that, yes, we have to conserve. Yes, we have to look at what we do. We have to plant. We have to put in place a way to sustain ourselves. But I don't know if that is what we should be spending a lot of our time concentrating on. That should go without saying. That should be happening anyway. We have government in place to do that. Don't we have a whole agricultural department? Don't we have a whole section of government? Don't we have a minister dedicated to that? Well, they're not doing their job. When are we going to call upon them to do so? So I don't know. Gentlemen,
I think you asked a good question, Mr. Chairman. You asked a good question. When are we going to do something about it? Let me remind you all of what Golda Meir had said. He said, those who forget the past will live to regret it. No, we cannot forget the past in this country. Under neither government. What we must do now is to stop the partisan subserviency to the party that we claim we belong to. To me, any member of the PUP who are prepared to be subservient to violation of the Constitution is very unpatriotic and is a traitor. So, what we have to begin to do is those who stand up, we must stand with them. I personally was victimized by my own members in Caribbean shows because I stood up against what I thought was wrong. And I paid the price. The only thing I was different from the others is that they cannot defeat me. Yes, you can beat me in an election and I can lose it, but you can't defeat me. The only time you want to defeat me is when I abandon my principles, and I have no intention of doing that. And I think some of us who claim we are PUP and who claim we are UDPs, they are neither PUPs nor UDPs. They are subservient, self-centered citizens. That's what they are.
All right.
We have to call them out. Call them out, Mr. Chairman.
Let me jump. Who says something? Who's saying something? Go ahead.
You know who I have been following, a friend of mine who has been echoing a lot of these very sentiments that Mr. Koi has mentioned there. And it would be great to get his perspective I think it'd be radical to get on this program. I'd like to tune in for that conversation. If you could get Norris Hall to comment on that, old PUP soldier who has made a very similar observation about the government. I found his posts on Facebook to be extremely insightful, honestly. I don't know if that's just people like Reid, but they're not to get the attention it deserves. I would like to see something. Maybe we should try to get him on this program. It would be really cool to hear what he has to say about that too.
I know Norris personally, and I think yes, I think at this point he has nothing to lose. He's kind of like in a Joe Cowie position. He guy won the only thing to go on. He don't need politics right now. Politics will no need him. Politics don't need the input from these seasoned veterans who have seen the light. No, I don't know that you would say that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I need politics. I do need. I'm a social being, and I have to have politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mean in that regard. I mean for it to what I'm talking about is to sustain you, for you to live on. You don't need a salary from politics, do you? Or do you still get one?
No, but I need my constitutional rights, my God-given right to be protected.
Yeah, I understand.
So I have to be involved.
Yeah. Ariel, before we fast to run out of time. Back to your program, because I want to catch you while you're here. Richard, sorry for you're getting any more input at any point, jump in. But see, you're dealing with your project along the mosquito coast, right? And you just had an election. So that in itself is a part of politics, where you enter in politics into the whole project. Because you have to have somebody that's guiding the process and making it happen. How is it going? Do you see improvement? You see, are people catching on to the idea? Is it going to work?
Well, see, why did I ask that earlier in the program? Maybe you never hear, but yes,
no, yeah.
We had the process we're going through with the election. Like I said before, a brethren from San Andres who did win as the representative. I did win out as a deputy representative, and like I said, it was an initiative. We had to have an election because it was like a democratic, like they had to have it done in a democratic way according to how it was presented, So that's why that had to be like that. It is not a political movement. Is definitely a new movement that we are taking up, and we see it as an opportunity for bring together two groups of people, which are the same people that was divided because of two countries, which is Colombia and Nicaragua. So it go back to the same thing again. It's like, if you claim to belong to one country, and then the other group of people, where it's the same family, claim to become citizens of another country, and these two people was originally family, but now they are divided. Not divided in the sense that we want to be divided from each other, but we are divided because we belong to two different countries. We have 150 miles between us. But if I want to go to San Andres, I can't just get on a plane and fly, or just get in a panga or a speedboat and just go there. I have to get on a bus and I have to go Panama or Colombia, fly and go right across the way. And these is the kind of things that affect us.
Why is that put in place as a hindrance to you going from one to the other? Is it that just
I don't think that no, it's not it's a political thing, because these two countries don't agree with each other. So
and they're right to go to one another.
Yeah, so we, one time when we used to trade with each other, we can't trade again no more with each other because of politics. It's simply that.
Sum this up for us though. But what your program is doing is to try to rectify this, is to try to put in place something to address this.
In this at this level where we is right now, G Mike, is we are just learning how to work with each other. You know what I mean? It's like You know, it's very nice to be able to could make big speeches and talk a whole bunch of different things and stuff like that. But I is not one of them type of people. Right now, we are just learning to work with each other. You know, like I said, it's an opportunity for us as a people to link up and come together. But the working party, the work group, then, you know, the team, we have to learn to work with each other. If we are going to do anything, we have to first learn to work with each other. And that's the stage where we are right now. So it's a process.
Are you recruiting members? Are you recruiting supporters?
No, not at this level. Like I said, right now our basic function is a 5-team membership. We have, of course, a constituency because people actually did come out. You have over 600 people that came out and voted. So we have a constituency, but we have a working team of about 5 people, and that's what we have to do. That's what we are doing right now in the process of learning to work with each other.
Do you have a plan? Do you have a forward goal?
Of course. I mean, our ultimate goal is to come together as a people, but it go back to the same thing too. It is not economically viable for the people who live in San Andres to have to buy food from Colombia when they could buy food from Mosquitia. You understand me? Right now, as we speak right now, the Colombian government has want to extend the airport in San Andres. And so when they have a situation like this, you all was talking about land earlier, which the Raizal people have the rights to the land in San Andres. But if the Colombian government want to extend the airport, then them put in a situation where them don't want to consult the Raizal people, and them just go ahead and just want to extend the airport. So right now, the Raizal people, which is just another name for Creole people, they in a situation right now where they're looking to sue the Colombian government and the people. They're not talking about holding people accountable. Them looking over sue the judge who signed the decree for the Colombian government could have the permission to extend the airport. And like I said, we have in the same situation too in our Mosquitia, because is like, you know, it's funny because democracy is who put Daniel Ortega in power in Nicaragua, and now him take that power and change the constitution of the country now, where him and his wife is not even president anymore, but co-presidents, which is something brand new. You understand me? So these people, them could do whatever it is what them want to do. You understand me? And we wrong here talking this and talking that and talking a whole bunch of things then. So, you know, like I said, we there to the point where we there right now, and we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. But I is not a traditional thinker. You know what I mean? And I like I said, I don't disagree. I agree with anything what anybody is saying. But I just think that
what does that mean, Ariel? Not a traditional thinker.
No, well, like say for example, like how you all saying that you know, like say for example, one thing I don't really think on is, I don't think you need an opposition. You understand? I don't think an opposition is needed. I don't believe that, you know.
So you want one party system or just
no? I don't say in one party system or whatever. I just don't think that opposition is necessary in a situation. I just don't think it. Like so, for example, for democracy to properly work, you need education. People have to be educated.
Right.
Democracy cannot work without educated people.
Okay.
People need to be educated. And the education that our people getting across the board around the globe today is no way is a representative for have democracy.
All right. So we need to do that. We do need to improve the education system. But as far as not having an opposition, I guess we'd have to look at what an opposition does, which is raises issues in the House. When the government tries to push something through, they will show another side of the matter, why maybe they shouldn't be allowed to do it. Not that it does much good when they're overpowered with the kind of majority they have now. But I wouldn't. I would wait a bit before I suggest let us just get rid of the opposition. I don't know. We need a whole lot of parties. In fact, we need one good government, but we need to understand that somebody has to hold them in check. The opposition does that on behalf of the people, though the people has to also be thinking for themselves and be involved, no? So I hear you. Well, listen, keep us abreast as to what is going on. We need to stay with this. I need to do some more homework on Nicaragua and what is happening in Ortega over there. I know he's the name. I put the country and the name together, but I really don't know if he's a good government or not. If he's a good, you obviously suggest he's a tyrant. I have not looked at that closely enough to make that determination. I'll take your word for it. I want to jump with Aaron a bit before we go because Aaron is I don't want to just get you on, and of course I do have to talk about my event coming up in Belize once I return. By the way, I'm still in Mexico. I'm coming from Mexico. I don't want to talk about Mexico Wi-Fi. Maybe that's why I gone down for a bit, but it usually holds up. Aaron, Joe was talking about your father. Tell us a bit about your father, how he came to Belize, and how you happen to be in Dangriga. Not Dangriga looking. I must say, I don't think Suzanne is even fully Garifuna looking, but you, I don't see Dangriga looking at all. How you managed to and how did you manage that?
I'll borrow some words from the current deputy prime minister. I might not look like Dangriga, but when you see me, you see Dangriga.
Wonderful, wonderful.
My
Wheels, right?
Yeah, actually, I born in the Bahamas. My plan me to do his medical internship in the Bahamas, and 6 months before he finished, I was born. I couldn't wait. But it's generational. Couple generations before my pop is who grew up in Dangriga, and with the Bowmans, the Queelans, that's basically where my father's side of the family come from. Growing up in Dangriga in the 80s, as Mr. Coy might know, my dad did run for the UDP in 84 in Dangriga and lost that to the late Honorable Aranda. But we stayed in Dangriga until 88 when we went, he got a job with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we moved out of the country for a year and a half or so. And then back to Dangriga, where he continued private practice as a medical doctor. That is what he is known for. Just call on the doc. And as Honorable Koi said, and that's how I know you, Mr. Koi, as Honorable Koi. He wrote a few books, and he continues to do that right now. Actually, he has about 8 total now.
He's still alive, you mean?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Now, you went to school in Dangriga, primary school?
Yes, primary and high school.
What was that like? Because you must have been some sort of an outcast. I know you have the Zabanese and you have other people there that aren't exactly dark complexion. But you, in school in Dangriga, you must have been outnumbered. How did that work out?
Outnumbered, yes. But to say that I noticed it, I would have to say no.
Did they notice it? Did the other kids notice it?
To me, it didn't seem like it.
Good.
I really didn't feel any racial tensions at all growing up. I know expectations for like donations and stuff were different, but as children, we are and were one.
That's good to hear. Because I would have, I know even in Belize City, we had in growing up there was tension. I as you might see, light skin, very light skin, and I had my share of problems growing up in trying to fit in with the other kids who and we were from the I was outside all the way deep south side, right next to the cemetery up by on Cemetery Road, no. So, but there were you could feel it growing up that something you had to fight against the whole time, and it's sad because we're all Belizeans and we should unite, and this is why I am so staunch in that unity thing where we don't lean towards any type of balkanization. No, and this is not to say that I don't think everybody has a right to celebrate their own ethnicity. That's all right. And I'd love to see a Garifuna temple in Dangriga, dedicated to Garifuna artists, where Garifuna could go and pray and even practice whatever part of their culture they would like to. But at the end of the day, when we make decisions, especially in government, as a country, we need to do it as a country of Belizeans and not as one particular group or another. No? And I don't know if that comes across as clearly as I feel it.
I think it did. I do want to touch back on something way earlier in this conversation where we start when we talk about a Garifuna museum. There is one in Dangriga. I think that Niche helped get it started in the early 2000s. I do think that we do have an opportunity to improve on that significantly. But then again, some of the comments that pop in during this podcast so far touch on mentality of people, and I think that we have to really look at how we think about our cultures, not separated, but like you've been saying, G Mike, as one Belizean culture. And yes, the Garifuna Museum in Dangriga, I believe personally, can be improved, and I think that will happen if this BTB project comes to fruition, where we can put more spotlight and focus on cultural experiences. But I do also like the idea of a one Belizean museum.
Also, yeah. Well, yeah. Tell me something, because I looked at the list of cabinet members. How do you feel about people who suggest that maybe the people have gone too mestizo, too Hispanic, and that they're oppressing the few black ministers that they have? And not only that, are there any Garinagu members of cabinet now there? I can't think of any. Is there a member I could think of?
There is not a member from Dangriga at all. Miss Erica Jang was a senator in the last administration, and she was removed. She is a Garifuna from Dangriga. But I as far as the cultural
makeup
of the cabinet, thank you. I cautiously state that while it might be obvious that there are certain prevalent ethnicities, that are the choice of the government that we put in it. And now we have to hold them accountable. And if we want to change it, then we have to wait on our turn to do that again when that next election is called.
Let me say, I brought that up, but I'll be the first to tell you that we shouldn't let that be the priority. We have to look at the job that they're doing. And whoever is in there, excuse me, insist that they do the job that they're hired and being paid to do. We pay them well. I don't think that we hold them as accountable as we ought to. A couple of things we need to work on. We need to start to come up with a list of things we need to prioritize and get it done, no? Gentlemen, we're out of time, and lady, Any final words? And before I go, let me say I plan to be in Belize for Easter. My work continues with the Charlie Burton Park. I'm doing what I can with the kids in that area. I got some good ball players coming up. Try to keep them active. We got one league fund that we draft and we have to clean the park and build things and whatnot. Our funds are depleted. And in particular for this tournament, we have to get some help. So what we're doing a barbecue sale. We want to ask anybody, if you got somebody in Belize where you want to buy only barbecue for, that would be a good way to support. You could help out in whatever way you can. We have also Vanessa Jenkins Young, who I'm sure you know, Susan, and everybody should know. She collects funds for us up there in New York, and she has been good for us. She has helped us a lot in keeping this park going. She has a Zelle. You know, we don't have Zelle in Belize, so her Zelle is Belize PT BELIZEPT at yahoo.com. BELIZEPT at yahoo.com. Gentlemen, again, any final words? Anything with somebody forget to say?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, guys.
I'm glad you came on here, and I hope you're not being a stranger and we could talk some more. And anything come up that you could get input on, just by all means, please.
Definitely.
I love Facebook as a forum for interchanging exchanges and whatnot. Sometimes we tend to go overboard and get in a personal things, but at the end of the day, I think we learn a lot from the comments of each other, and we have to continue, man. We got to speak up. Let's speak up, and for God's sake, let's speak up about this situation in the Middle East where these children are dying daily. Why? What is the situation now? Is their hate so strong? Is it that they're going to just kill out everybody there? I understand your concern about the mosquito force, Ariel, and I wish you do, but the wider world, man, there's so much going on. It's incredible. Incredible.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I must say that given the diversity tonight of the personalities and the perspectives, I think the listeners and the viewers benefited tremendously from the show. So I thank everybody who came on. I myself benefited tremendously from the characters. I remember Richard Holder pretty good. I thought you were in Belize, my brother. And of course, well, the gentleman area, quite informative on what is happening. And then Mr. Anderson. It was nice having you. I didn't know that you were the son of the father that I knew.
Yes,
thank everybody. Thank everybody for
Susan, who manages that piece of land where they talk about down that PG there?
Which land? Sorry.
The one where they talk about put the where you say the water supplies come from.
It's the Sarah has a committee. I think it's about 5 or 6 people. And I think that they're just starting to really give themselves some sort of real organized governance, and kind of delegating work to each other and trying to set up a system where they can distribute the land. Really, it's communal land, and it's the only one in Belize for Garifuna people that's privately owned. And so I think they're kind of encouraging people too from the diaspora to apply and, get a piece and be able to farm it or build it or something like that. So it's the Sarah Committee of the St. Vincent Black property.
Sounds good. Let's get somebody on and make a talk about that when that plan gets...
Yeah, we can set that up for sure. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks for coming on again, Sue. Thank you, Aaron.
Guys, for
Richard, always a pleasure, my brother. Honorable Joe, Ariel, enough love.
Yeah, give thanks, brother. Give thanks.
Or whatever, right? See why? Take us away. More for real, yo.
I know Gucci, yo. Gucci, I know Gucci, yo. Gucci, Yara, Santo Cerebro, aí, cadê Santo Cerebro? Uaiao, Lele, Abarabo, Uaiao, Lele, Abarabo, Panyutu Mama, Ina Nubula Arabo, Alwa, Uwaina Negemo, Panyutu Mama, Anubula Arabo, Alwa, Uwaina Negemo. Mama yao, arabo, nene musika, bakupa mama, aladaye. Mama yao, ni arabo, anitazime. Mama yao, arabo, anitazime.
Now, for people that don't know your practice, like who's the typical implant patient that you see these days?
Typical implant patient could be a patient that
I have to go. Oh, children. Hapurganyo, Waragamagayo. Quem bom bimaraga, ibare. Quem bom bimaraga, ujaiwa. Hapurganyo, hare. I never go. Oh, children. I never go. Oh, children. I put it on you, what I come at you. Can't go be madaga, ibare. Can't go be madaga, I put it on you hard. To pass no bomb be madaga, ibare. Can't go be madaga,